Hi, everybody. Welcome to 311 Administration Updates. What I'm going to talk through today are a bunch of the new things that we're going to be seeing when we upgrade to 311. And I'm going to go through kind of the list here, and then we'll take it through it point by point. We're reminding everyone that Search Catalog Traditional is going away at the time of the upgrade, so that will no longer be an option for searching from the staff side. We also get some nice keyboard navigation features, which are new in 311, so I'll show you those. We have a number of interfaces that have been updated and or angularized, and the ones that I'm going to show you, a bunch of them are in acquisitions, and there's a separate video that Elizabeth did on that one. And so I will show you the new cash reports screen, the new statistical category editors for patrons and items, and the new patrons with negative balances interface. Then for kind of general circ administration, I'm going to show you how statistical categories look if you have them set to view in the OPAC. And you can now print a source library address on a transit slip if you want to. We have a new lever, if you will, in our circulation policies that lets us decide whether or not, if people renew early, if they get those days back, sort of. So we'll show you how that works. And then we also have some new penalties, kind of options for fine-free libraries using auto-renew. So they're a little hard to show because they're happen over time, but I'll talk to you about those as well. Two things that I wanted to remind you. One is that both of our test servers are upgraded to 311, so feel free to log in and play with any of these features. Today, I'm going to be using our primary test server, and that URL is on here. And so if you want to log in and look at anything, you certainly can. The only thing is that depending on where your account was in its annual renewal cycle when we did the last update, which I think was in August, if your account was expired at that point and you've renewed it since, it will still be expired on the test server, and so we may have to update that for you. So if you can't log in, if you get a login failed and you're pretty sure your password is right on the test server, let us know and we'll do that from our end. Then the other thing that I'm reminding you is that the upgrade is going to happen overnight on November 14th. And when you come in on the 15th, you'll have all this new stuff that we're going to talk about today. And you may need to re-register your workstations. You probably see me do that today. And if you do see anything odd or anything that's not behaving as you would have expected, always let us know. So I'm going to head over here. And I'm going to log out just so I can use the test branch to log in at. And so the first thing that you're going to see is there is a search the catalog. There is not a search catalog traditional. It is gone. And then I always like to point this out because I forget about it, and it is something that we're working on development about. But if you do click into search if you do Elizabeth, why can I see the, oh, here we go. So this is what I always tell people, is that because I always forget these 3 dots. This is the thing that gets you the drop down where you can do shelving locations, form, audience level. So don't forget about the 3 dots, especially as you're using this new and updated staff search catalog. Something else that's neat, and those of us who are big fans of keyboard shortcuts in general will definitely appreciate this, is that you can now tab through these menus. So I'm hitting tab here to go across. If I hit either the enter key or the down arrow, then it's going to open that menu for me. And then I can either continue to hit tab, or I can use the up and down arrows. Shift tab works the same way as the up arrow. And I can use that to then navigate through these menus using my keyboard. So those of us who like our, copy and paste keyboard shortcuts, who still miss the F keyboard function keyboard shortcuts that we used to have in the staff client, I like having that back as well, because you can kind of do that without moving your hand over to the mouse. So then the first thing that I will show you, and I will get there. Oops. Via local administration, is the cash report screen. This screen has been around for a long time. It goes back to, again, the staff software staff client days. And it's been converted into Angular, so you're going to see a little bit more of a clean look here. It does take a minute to load, especially if you're loading a bunch of dates like I am here. If you're only loading one date, it's not bad at all, but I'm because we don't have a lot of payments on the test server, I'm going back pretty far. And so you'll see that it's mostly the same information that you're getting here. As you're used to seeing, you can take things off if you don't want to see all of these. And then similar to how the non-Angular one is, you'll see that there's a breakdown by staff user payments, and that includes things like forgiven. Oh, John, some of the F shortcuts do work. I think I trained myself out of using them and then didn't go back. But yes, so F5 is still item status. F1 is still checkout. Okay, so I was wrong. They're not going. You can still use the F shortcuts. Thank you, Jonathan. Sorry, got distracted by being excited about using that one again. Okay, so then we're going back to cash reports. And so that same kind of data is what you're still going to see on here. It's just a nice updated screen. And it also made some of the fields clickable. So I can click on this link here to go over to Kat's login, and I can copy the whole row to the clipboard, as well as printing or downloading the full CSV, which you will see really in all of the new grid-based interfaces. So that's a nice updated screen. Then we're going to go back to local administration. And one of the things that needed a refresh, in my opinion, was the statistical categories editor. Two interesting things about this. One, they are split out into two entries. Two, they are still alphabetized by statistical as opposed to by item or patron, so they are still next to each other. So again, these are updated interfaces. You've got all the grid settings, you've got the search. We'll take a look at and this is, typically something that we will do for people, but those of you who are, looking at the options or want to make adjustments, this is where the item statistical categories live now, and this is the updated new statistical category interface. Definitely a little bit cleaner than the old one. Then once you have one set up, you can edit it from there as well. And if you click on the entries link, then it's going to pop you over and give you all those entries, and you can add an entry. You still cannot edit entries. We have to have that done in the back end. So you can't edit or remove entries. It can be done, but not through the staff client. But you can add new ones here through that interface. And then our one for the patrons is going to look really similar. And you'll see some of those same headings, same grid layout, same click through for entries. And then I am going to come back to this later, but you will notice in both the item and patron statistical category configuration screens, there is an OPAC visible option. And if your library currently has anything that's set to visible, you should have been contacted by Spark support, because we're double checking with people to make sure that they really do want those visible in the OPAC. In the past, it had a toggle, but it didn't do anything. So that the rest of that functionality is built now, and I will show you how that looks in just a minute here. But before we do that, I'm going to show you one more thing, which is the patrons with negative balances sheet. This isn't one that we train on a whole lot, but I do find it pretty useful. Oh, and we're not going to have anybody at test B.
You can use the children's library.
That's what I was looking at your notes to see what your sample was. So what this screen is going to do is it's going to give you a list of people who have negative balances. And so sometimes this happens, and it doesn't happen very often, but if you're forgiving fines or someone is paid for something that then later comes back and they end up getting their balance adjusted, you can, in some cases, end up with a negative balance. So it's just something where if you find that happens at your library, this is a screen where you can go and you can see, okay, this is something weird that happened and I need to go in and deal with it. And again, it's an updated screen with updated grid settings, and you can have kind of all the patron fields that you might want, as well as being able to use the download options like you would be able to with any other screen. So, as I mentioned, one of the things is that those statistical categories can be set to be OPAC visible. And so here is an example of a time where the item has a statistical category set that is visible in the OPAC for, we've set it this way for demonstration purposes. In memory of Pale's test. May Pale's test, rest in peace. So if you have your copy tag, that's going to show up here right next to the call number. And then the OPAC visible category is going to show down below that. So you can see how if you were looking at a bib record that had a bunch of items, it is going to start to complicate the view of the list, especially if you have a lot of things that have both. But it is something that, if it would be a way to acknowledge Friends of the Library contributions, for instance. It is, it's nice, it's easy to select in the item editor. It is not searchable. So if there are things that you want to be searchable, you still want to be using the copy tags for that. But it is reportable, obviously, as all statistical categories are. Then the other one is, do we have statistical categories for patrons that are patron visible? And we do. And
Yeah, just refresh it.
oh, okay.
It should.
Yep, sorry about that. I think it might be because I'm copying and pasting it from Word that it's displeased. Okay, so then once we're logged in as a patron, then if we go to our preferences and personal information, then it will see it display here in the kind of list of personal information. You'll have a new line that has the name of the stat cat as the header, and then the value of the stat cat for the text here. So this could be useful for municipality if you want patrons to be able to see what their municipality is registered as, then they could let you know if it's not correct. It's not something that they can edit from this side. It's something they need to contact the library about editing, but it is available on there if there are patron statistical categories that you would like to have them have access to that information. Okay. And this isn't going to be one that I am going to demo real strongly. But if you are somebody who is printing transit slips, the source library address is now available on as a macro in this in the both the transit slip and the hold transit slip, and you'll see these so what we can do is we could add so we could say this item needs to be routed from
Two brackets.
two bracket. Oh, thank you. Oh, but they're not different in the example data. So it's going to give us the same. It's showing as a transit from test B to test B. So you do have that information if you did want to put the origin of the transit, either the code, the name, the address, that's available here in these database calls in the print templates. Okay. So the last thing that I am going to talk about, and I will use a little bit of an example, which is the way that we handle penalties for different libraries and the way that we handle renewals. So one of the things that happens right now is if I have a book checked out and I renew that book via the OPAC, I call the library and have staff do it. If it's a book that would normally circulate for 14 days, it's going to give me 14 days from the day of the renewal. So we have now an option for the circulation policy to take that into account. So a library can say, okay, if they renew it the second day they have it, then I don't need them to get the extra days. But if they renew it 3 days before it's due, then I want to go ahead and kind of recredit them those 3 days. So I check it out for 14 days. On the 11th day, I go to renew it. It's going to give me a total circulation period of 28 days instead of 11 plus another 14. So it's going to extend it out as if I had waited until the last minute to renew it. There are obviously scenarios where you wouldn't want to do this. I'm sure many libraries that use high demand book would not want to do this, because if someone else has a hold on it, it's not going to allow the renewal. And so you would want you'd not want to reward people for renewing earlier, and then if someone else put a hold on it in the interim, they'd have to wait longer. So, but it is just a nice thing, and I think it helps patrons kind of understand it better when they get the total of 2 weeks plus a 2-week renewal is 4 weeks total. And so Elizabeth, can I go ahead and renew this one, or is it going to mess up yours?
Wait, so if it's a 14-day checkout and they renew it on day 11 of the checkout, they only get those 3 days plus the 14 for 17 days, not 28 days. They just get the days they're missing.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I was thinking 20.
Sorry. So yeah, it's just the days that between the due date and the day they renew, plus
Right.
the extra.
So from original checkout.
Yeah. Okay. Original checkout. Yes.
Yes, would be. So it doesn't impact anything with auto renewal directly. If you have it, both this and auto renewal turned on, so then you could have the auto renewal run a little bit earlier. Right now, the auto renewal runs 11 p.m. I think the day before it's due.
Yeah, 23 hours.
Oh, 20, yeah, so 23 hours before the due date. So you could turn it on and it would give them that 20, they'd get 23 hours. If you were a library that has auto renewal set up a little bit earlier, has it trying to auto renew 2 or 3 days earlier, or you'd like to do that, say, as opposed to doing a courtesy notice. So like right now, a lot of libraries use a 3-day courtesy notice and then the auto renew. So you could kind of combine it if you wanted to, because one of the things that happens right now is people get the courtesy notice and then they call the library and the library renews it, even though it would have auto renewed in the first place. So you can use it in conjunction with auto renewal or not. And the way that most people have auto renewal set up right now, it wouldn't really affect those auto renewals, but it would mean that people who are renewing earlier would still get that benefit. Oh, okay. So if you have multiple, yeah, because it would renew it again. That's right. That's right. So yes, so it will, if you say this is something where we have 4 renewals, so I renew it on day 11. Well, you do lose the renewal, but it won't try to auto renew because it's not due anymore. So,
but so you don't get it later though. So it counts. So every renewal counts, like ticks down an auto renew. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. Like if you have 2 renewals and 2 auto renewals, when you renew early, you just have 1 renewal and 1 auto renewal left.
yes, that's right. So I forgot that. Will it give me the number of auto renewals? It doesn't look like it will on this. So one of the things about auto renewal, most libraries have it set up where the number of auto renewals is the same as the number of regular renewals, but you can set them to be different. You would always want to set the number of auto renewals to be the same or lower, because if you set it to be more, it still won't renew it. But that's something else that would come into play if you have both types of renewals set to different values. So that is not something this is not something that's going to happen by default. We're not going to turn it on for anybody. This would be something where you submit a support ticket and just let us know, you know, these are the things that we do want the day extension on. These are the things that we don't. We'll be able to walk you through it. So if it's something you think you want for your library, let us know, and we'll talk to you about what those options are. Then the other part of this is that there's been some development, some that Pales has sponsored and some that other library systems have sponsored, in order to make it easier for libraries that aren't using fines to have some more options about how to interact with patrons. So historically, most of the times that a patron's account is restricted, it's because they've hit a certain fine threshold. So I'm sure, you know, most of us who've worked at libraries where the computers are hooked into the ILS, it's like, you know, if that person has $5.01, they're not going to be able to log on to the computer, and you're going to hear about it at the desk. And those thresholds can be set. So that was the most common threshold. But if you're in a library where daily fines are not being charged, that's not an option. And so there's been a lot of development around using number of overdue books, and some of the other options to either restrict all patron activity or just restrict some patron activity. So one of the examples of this, especially for libraries that use auto renewal, do you want items to still auto renew for patrons if they have fines? So it can now be set up so that if a patron hits the fine threshold, they can renew the items they have out, but they can't check out new items. Similarly, we can do that based on the number of, if you don't want to use a dollar amount, then you can use the number of items that they have that are overdue can block some or all of the things that they would normally be able to do through the ILS. So what we tend to do is we tend to make recommendations about this to libraries, and a lot of the work that we've done on it and that other places have done on it really comes out of libraries saying, well, I still want people to be able to renew things, or I still want the auto renew to work, even if patrons have fines or have overdue items. So there's a lot more granularity in that now than there used to be. So there's a question about lost and damage charges. So right now, all the limits are, if you have a fine limit, it doesn't really care what those charges are. They could be gross manual bills, they could be over daily fines, they could be lost or damaged fees. I don't and we can do penalties based on number of overdue items. Elizabeth, I don't think we can do penalties based on number of lost items, can we?
I'm double checking, but I don't believe so.
Okay. So that would be one where you would want to set, like, you could essentially set your fine threshold to what your sort of minimum charge is for a lost book, so that it would kick in at that point, even if you don't have daily fines. So anything that's billed to your account is going to count towards that fine limit. So I don't think it can be conditioned. So they can't be conditional, but they can overlap, right, Elizabeth?
Yeah, so there is a patron exceeds lost count threshold. There's a patron exceeds fine threshold, so that would be, you would have to hit both for them to be blocked. Or one or the other.
Mhm.
The renew is a separate feature, and it would only be if they did not exceed the fines. So, okay, so yeah. So in your case, if the patron had, so your limit is 3 lost items and $20 in fines. If they had $19 in fines and 1 lost item, it would still let them renew if you turn that setting on.
Yeah, so I think it's the opposite. I think it's, we can set both thresholds, but as soon as one threshold kicks in, it's going to block them. But we can set multiple thresholds so that if any one of those is triggered, it will block them, but it's not cumulative, if you will. And thanks for checking, Elizabeth. So there is a separate threshold for overdue versus lost. So you could say, okay, they could have up to 5 overdue items, but if they have 1 lost item, then that's what I want the penalties to kick in. So obviously this would be very particular to libraries and library systems. It can get very complicated, and I always caution people that the software has a ton of levers, and we want, we want to be able to use them. You also want to create policies and ILS setups that both your staff and your patrons can understand. So you can see how this could get very flowcharty in terms of what's going on with the patron account. And so we want everybody to feel free to use the myriad things that the software can do. We also want to try to keep it simple where we can.
You can also, with this development, decide if they have, say, overdue items. Currently, it blocks them from circulating new items, putting things on hold, having holds captured, renewing items, and checking out holds. You could say, well, if they have overdue items, I still want them to be able to place holds, but not check out or renew. So that way, they can, when their items come in available for hold, they'll come into the library, and you can be like, hey, by the way, you have these overdue items. You need to resolve this. So there's that option as well.
Yeah, so it adds a lot of granularity. And this was a combination of work that we had funded and that the King County Library System outside of Seattle had funded. So it's going to give us just a lot more levers, and I think hopefully more ways to use, kind of use those hooks of getting people back into the library. And also, I really like the option, especially with auto renew, is it helps people not just continue to rack up more fines as they go. And then whatever they do have on their account can be dealt with the next time they come in. So I'm excited about being able to use that. And I know that we have some libraries that have tested it with us, and that we'll be reaching out to them about going ahead and setting it up now that it's going to be in production. It's hard to test well because you cannot, as Barb mentioned, think of every scenario and test every scenario. So we'll be excited to see how it pans out now that it's going to be available in production. I believe that is my whole list of things that I wanted to cover. Elizabeth and Kat, did I miss anything that you wanted me to hit on?
Nope, that looks like the whole list for admin stuff.
Cool. And so I will hang around for questions, but I did want to remind you all that we have trainings the next 2 Wednesdays as well. And those outlines of what's in what training and how to sign up are in Kat's wonderful weekly emails. All the 311 documentation that we've created is available on the Spark Help Desk site, and Elizabeth sent the direct link, which will take you directly to that section of the Help Desk. And as always, you guys know how to get a hold of us. And please feel free to send us a note so that we can either help you set up any of these features. If you've heard about something today and you know you want to use it, let us know and we'll plan to turn it on for you right away. Or if there's anything wonky going on Wednesday, November 15th, you can let us know. All right. Anybody have questions? Thanks, Barb.